Hello, I'm Chris Mann and I'm going to give you a quick review of the Boling P1 Vlogger video light. Now, this light is new to me, but I think it's actually been on the market for about a year or so. It's quite compact, as you can see. It's about the same size as a mobile phone. It's very slim, and the reason for that is that it doesn't have a separate battery. It's actually got a lithium battery built in, and there's pros and cons to that, which we'll talk about. But it's really quite slim. It's also fairly light. It weighs 264 grams, which isn't too bad. And it's actually very solidly made. It's got an aluminium frame and also a metal bracket for mounting it, rather than the usual kind of plastic hot shoe style, or cold shoe I should say, bracket that you get on some cheaper video lights, this kind of thing. So my first impressions when I unpacked it were that it was a really solidly made light. The other main feature that it has is that it's an RGB light, which means that instead of simply having white LEDs or yellow and blue LEDs and mixing them to create the color temperature, it does red, green and blue. And that means you can not only adjust the color temperature in sort of standard mode over a very wide range, but it also does various special effects, which we'll come on to. The battery, as I say, it's built in. They reckon it gives you about 2 to 2.25 hours on full power. I haven't fully tested it, but it does seem to last pretty well. Now, having a built-in battery is great in terms of compactness. It makes the light very small. The downside is you can't swap out the battery as you can with, say, something like this. This is a ZT17, I think, and that has the typical Sony camcorder battery that goes on the back. So obviously with this kind of light you can change the battery and put a new one in if this one goes flat. With the Boling, you're going to have to recharge it. It does have a USB-C socket though, up here just next to the on-off switch. So one possibility would be to connect it up to a power bank like this one, with a USB-C to A cable, and that way you could probably run it directly from the power bank, and that would give you a bit more runtime. So built-in battery, pros and cons, personal preference whether you like that idea or not. The switches and so on this are really solid. The on-off switch is on the top there. It's just a little slider, and as you can see immediately, this is quite a bright light. I've got this on about 1/3 power right now. I'll turn it off again just so I don't blind you. On the side there's a set button at the top, and then a little rocker switch. They call it the function wheel, which allows you to change the settings. And at the bottom you've got a dimmer. Obviously no surprises what that does. Adjust the brightness. Now to help you with that, I'll just turn it on again, turn it down. On the back of the light itself, I'll try and arrange this so you can see it. There is a little OLED display on here, and that will show you the brightness that's been set. I'll just turn it up and down so you can see that, and also the color temperature and various other options when you're adjusting it. So that's nice to have. You're not having to sort of guess what settings you've got. I do like the little control wheels. They're progressive, and what that means is if you turn it slowly you get very small adjustments in brightness. If you turn it quickly you can very easily get to full brightness in a hurry. So that's a nice piece of design. Same applies to the adjustments with the function button. Okay, I'll just turn it off for a second. In comparison, this little ZT light has push buttons, and you have to hold down that button to turn it on, and then repeatedly press these buttons to adjust the brightness, which is slower if you're trying to get it up to full power quickly. Now, to be fair, I ought to point out that this little ZT is a lot cheaper. It's only about 20 or 30 pounds, or 40, maybe $50. So It's cheaper, but it doesn't have the same range of adjustment that the Boling has. So in sort of standard mode, where you're just using it as a straightforward light, generally speaking, what you're going to want to do is just simply adjust the power with the wheel at the bottom, but then with the function button you can change the color temperature all the way from 8500 Kelvin, so that's a very blue light, hopefully you can see that, down to 2500, and that's much more orange. If I point it myself, you should be able to see the difference. That's the 2900, that's really warm, and there's the very cold light. So a lot of range of adjustment on the color temperature, which is really good. I guess most people are going to run it at 5200 Kelvin most of the time because that's daylight balanced, but you have got the option. Now, if I want to get into the other effects with this light, again, let me just turn it down a bit so it's not glaring too much for you. What you do is you just tap the set button and that will change it into the first mode, and this is the multicolor mode. You can probably see now that's gone red. I'll just turn that up a little bit. There we go. And what you're then able to do is adjust the hue and the saturation of this. And to do that, you just press the little function control up or down, and hopefully you'll be able to see this color changing. Let's make it a little bit less bright. This makes it easier to see the color. Okay, so it's going up through green, around to yellow, and back to red. And on the back, it's got this little scale over here which shows you the hue range and tells you the numerical value of the hue. So if you want, for example, a green, you're going to need to change the hue value to 120 degrees. So you simply hold down that little function control until the readout says 120 or thereabouts, and you've got a green light. If you want to change the saturation, you just tap the function button again, and now this little panel over here, the OLED, is showing you the saturation value. It's at 100% right now. So if I turn that down, I get a less saturated color. So it's very controllable. Let's put that back to 100%. Now the third feature, if you press the set button again, well, hey, special effects. It has 3 different special effects. This is the flashing effect. I'm not quite sure what you'd use this for. I guess if you're trying to simulate lightning or something for a drama, you could use that. There are various presets for this. You just press the function up and down and it will change it to different flash rates and things. If you press the function key in, you'll get to the second setting, which rotates the colors. So that sort of spins through the color wheel. Again, not quite sure how useful that's going to be for most people, but there you go. It's obviously something they were able to do in the software, so they've done it. Tap the function key again and you get to emergency mode. You get a red flashing light, and if you change the function, press the little function button down or up, you can get a blue light instead, or an orange light. So you've got 3 different emergency services in one. Again, maybe for a drama you might want to have a cop car parked outside the house where the scene is supposed to be happening, and you could therefore have that. I'm not going to be using that feature, I don't think, but there it is. Overall, I think this is a great little light. I really like the construction. I like the power. I like the light quality. One thing I didn't mention is it has a CRI of 96. So in other words, the white balance is pretty accurate, and it has a wider spectrum than most lights. One of the drawbacks of cheap LEDs like this one is they have a kind of restricted spectrum. They can be stronger in the green than in the blues and reds, and that can cause problems with your white balance. You get less accurate color. So Colour accuracy of this is very good. Size is great. Battery life pretty good for considering it's a built-in battery. I really like the adjustable arm. And actually, although when you first take it out of the box, you think, oh, this is quite heavy, it isn't. I was surprised when I weighed it. This weighs 264 grams. The Zecti light, by the time you put a Sony battery on the back, that comes in at 365 grams. So that's actually 100 grams heavier, even though it's partly made of plastic. The back on this one's aluminium, but the sides and the end and the mount are all plastic. So that's actually 100 grams heavier. And a really old-fashioned light like this F&V Z96, all plastic, pretty flimsy, that comes in at 311 grams by the time you put an NPF battery on it. So actually the Zecti comes in, the Boling comes in lighter than the Zecti or the F&V, even though it's got a built-in battery. One last thing to mention, you get a free case. It's nothing special, it's just nylon, Velcro flap there, so you can just drop the light straight into it like that. Let's get that to go. If I need to fold the bracket around to the top to get it to go in, and there it goes. And on the back it has a couple of press stud flaps, so you can easily put it through your belt if you wanted to put it on your belt like that, or just put it in the camera bag. I mean, I think it's so small, it's the kind of light I'm going to be keeping with me. And a final note on this, if I just take the light out, when you look at the bracket, you'll notice that it has a hinge on here, and that's held on with an Allen bolt. Now they're very thoughtfully, Boling have supplied in the case a little Allen wrench. It's just here in the front, it's behind this flap. And you just take the flap there and you can pull that out. I'm not going to take it out, it's awkward to get back in. But that's really nice. It means that if after a bit of use this bracket comes loose, starts flopping around, get your little Allen wrench out, you've got it with you, tighten it up. So overall, I would say this is an extremely good video light. I think the size is good, the battery is handy having that built in, and that makes the weight lighter, and the light quality is really good, and if you want it, a couple of special effects. So full marks to Boling, excellent light. Thanks very much for watching.